Welcome to Talk of the Bay. I'm Christine Barrington. Every 2 seconds, someone in the world suffers a stroke. Every 6, someone's quality of life will be forever changed. To meet this challenge locally, we are lucky to have the Cabrillo Stroke and Disability Learning Center, which is celebrating its 50th anniversary this October. And here to tell us everything worth celebrating about the center is my guest, Executive Director Sally Weiss. Sally, thank you for joining me on Talk of the Bay. Could you please introduce for our listeners what the center is and why it draws praise both nationally and internationally for its novel approach to healing?
The Centre is a program at Cabrillo College that's been operating for 50 years. It's a completely unique program that really fits a gap for students who, as adults, have acquired a disability. And life has been significantly changed because of the result of an illness or an accident, an event that has impacted their functioning. And so these classes are designed for students who are wanting to continue working on their rehabilitation after medical care has concluded. And they're still working on adjustments that have really impacted all of their life because of the situation that they have found themselves in. And so they're coming for classes in things like mobility and speech and communication, counseling, arts classes, a whole range of classes with a peer cohort that allows them to really begin to take control of their own life again, set their own goals, do their own work, and really determine for themselves how they can continue to improve and make changes in their life that are a result of significant changes. And so it's an educational program. It's not medical. They come as students. They're not a patient in our program. They come as a student of Cabrillo College. And in this integrated, interdisciplinary peer program, they get to move forward in a really productive way.
Wow. So as people are listening, they're thinking like, oh, they're taking classes, and some people might project that the students are doing pretty well. And so paint a picture for our listeners, the age range of students that you get and the disability level of students that you get in the program.
Yeah. So our students range from early 30s, actually all the way through to early 90s. So the majority of our students are probably between the ages of in their 50s to 70s. And it's a range of impact that they might have experienced. So we will have people who are using a wheelchair and have both loss of function, maybe in lower limbs, sometimes upper limbs, but they might be working on language and communication skills. So the impact on their mobility and their language capacity might be quite extensive. But they have a way of being part of the program, perhaps through counseling classes, the speech and communication classes, and even some art classes, depending on their capacity. And there is room for students to come with a caregiver. So we want to emphasize independence to the extent that a student has independence, but we also welcome, where necessary, that's assistance and collaboration with a caregiver. That really allows us to work with a large range of students. We have other students who are quite ambulatory, but they're still working on maintaining their mobility. They might maybe have some issues with memory, sequencing of information, managing some cognitive skills. And so some of our classes might be more appropriate for them and designed to, again, work with the capacity and the abilities that they have. And again, sustaining it, continuing to improve, and giving a social context as well to practice skills that might be either being relearned, fresh. So it's a wide range of ages and of capacities at the center.
Wow, it just sounds incredibly novel. And what is the classroom like for those who are dealing with mobility issues? Does it look like a physical therapist's kind of room, or what's it like?
That's a great question. So it is, we call it our gym. And the room is has some equipment on the side of the room, some bikes, for example. Down the middle of the room is a set of parallel bars that is for students to be walking through, depending on the class. Either side of those parallel bars is a set of chairs, and students are lined up on those chairs. They're seated facing each other, so it's very interactive even from the beginning. It's a class, so the classes are led actually by licensed physical therapists. So there's very much that therapy background that is in the classroom environment. But the classes are done together as I said, in that classroom environment. And students will often begin with a lot of exercises that are very functional exercises for daily living. One of the things, for example, that we might do is a thing called sit to stand. So from a seated position to standing, back to seated, and doing it, repeating the action, learning to do it in a way that is safe, mitigating against fall risks, and building that balance and core strength to ensure that those activities that are part of everyday life are really being well strengthened. And then there might be activities, depending on the level of the class, that are through the parallel bars. And nobody goes through those parallel bars without somebody walking through them. Safety is paramount in the room. So it's somewhat physical therapy office, somewhat gym, somewhat classroom, sort of all combined in there together. There's music playing, so it's got a lovely, lively energy in the room. Students are telling stories, they're engaging, they're really talking together at the same time, so that even if that is a mobility class, communication, socialization, all of those components are actually happening all at the same time, even though the focus in that particular class might be on mobility.
In case you've just tuned in, you are listening to KSQD Community Radio for all of the Monterey Bay. I am speaking with Sally Weiss, the Executive Director of the Stroke and Disability Center at Cabrillo College. So, staying with this idea that you could take like a full class load, you could take the mobility training, you could take arts, which really helps with using your hands and eye coordination, all kinds of things. Singing, do you still have the singing classes? Yeah.
We do. We're so grateful to still have our instructor, Penny Hanna, has been with our center for a long time now, over 10 years. Penny is a wealth of knowledge and music. So we have a choir with Penny. And that, again, is just tapping into our musical background, tapping into just all the joy that comes with music. It is actually also wonderful practice for breath production, and often students who might be working on their language and speech production. Choir is a lovely way for them to be practicing that in a very fun way. Penny also runs a music appreciation class. It's called The Joy of Music. And I often, if I'm honest, will stand in the doorway and actually listen in on the class because I love it so much. And because she'll bring in all kinds of different music, all kinds of genres of music, all kinds of history of music. And students have an opportunity to engage with that. That might prompt discussion, memories, again, just this wonderful engagement in that creative part of our brains. And it's an encouraging experience as students really engage over music. So yes, music is very much a part of the building. If it's playing music during a class, producing music as a class, music is definitely an integral component of the program.
It sounds incredibly functional, but also enriching because, of course, a stroke is a brain injury. And this sounds like you can create a program that's just hitting all these different parts of the brain and helping it to integrate. And that's so crucial in the wake of a stroke. And I'd love you to speak to that. And also, like thinking about the music. My understanding that people with a stroke often can have difficulty speaking, but it can be easier to sing. And so it's multi-layered. And then also the antidepressant aspect to it, because when there's a brain injury, often physiologically, there's just depression, right? You might be depressed because of your reduced capacity, but there's also just this functional depression with the brain injury. So I've just laid a bunch of stuff out there. Please speak to that.
Absolutely, you're spot on, and I think the field of neuroscience is really exploding as well. The neuroplasticity, as we refer to it, so that ability of the brain to grow and change and adapt is a field that we're really only delving into. It's not my expertise, but I feel like I get to live in that world every day, watching what happens with our students here. So you're absolutely right that what is pretty unique and remarkable about the program is this interdisciplinary approach. So you've got things that are really tapping into all aspects of the brain, all over the different fields, right brain, left brain, things that are very logical, movement, singing, all of the emotional component, all of that is combining together in the different classes and even within a particular class, so that a student has the capacity to connect somewhere something will actually work for them, and you can make connections from one activity to another activity. And the brain is remarkable. We have students who particularly maybe a stroke, they might be 9, 10 years out and still reporting things that are improving. So it's this slow process, which is one of the genius ideas of putting this in an educational environment, because the medical world doesn't have the ability to sustain that long, slow progress over 9 or 10 years. But once that short-term acute care or therapy, outpatient therapy is done, what's next? Well, this is next. This is such a unique option for people to come no longer as patients, but as students, and to have this enriching environment. And it is enriching. And that's also the beauty of placing it within an educational institution. We have everything at our doorstep. We have other departments. We have an art gallery. We have a library. We have all kinds of aspects of being on a campus life that allow us to engage with students, so that it can be continuing to be enriching and expanding your thinking and your experience, all at the same time as working on your own skills and the things that you are wanting to sustain or continue improving on. I do want to clarify, it is not just stroke. So it's really, most of our students, it's a neurological based impact. So that might be a traumatic brain disorder, some other medical condition that has had an impact. It might also be people with a degenerative condition. So we have people with MS, Parkinson's, and so a lot of work in that situation is working to manage the changes that are coming, and to mitigate against the speed at which that might happen. But it's the full range, really, of that acquired disability, however it might come.
Wow, that's extraordinary. And I'm just going to take a moment to reintroduce the show for our listeners in case you've just tuned in. You are listening to KSQD Community Radio for all of the Monterey Bay. Here in Santa Cruz, that's on 90.7 FM, and in Monterey and South Santa Cruz County, that's 89.7 FM. I am speaking with Sally Weiss, the executive director of the Stroke and Disability Center at Cabrillo College. And it's such a unique program. And I'm thinking, for those who have been in medical settings, being in the school setting, I make up a story that it has to be more fun and more psychologically healthy to be in this, like, oh, we're all learning together and I'm on a campus with all these young kids. I mean, it's a mixed population at Cabrillo for sure, but I imagine it's really uplifting to be able to just be a student, right? Working on your well-being.
Absolutely. It's one of the joys that we get as staff and faculty, to watch the progression of students. So often, not all the time, but when somebody becomes a new student here, particularly if they're fairly fresh out of the medical experience, we can find that there's still this sense of a little bit of being passive. because everything's been kind of done to them, for them, rightfully so, for a period of time, as they've managed this significant event, whatever it might be, that has occurred in their life. And it's so fun to watch that transition happen and to see somebody slowly take on this sense of ownership again. I get to choose what classes I get to do. I get to choose what activities I participate in. I get to choose how much effort I put into this. And then very much what we see as people become more familiar with the program and take more ownership of, I'm a student of this center, they in turn become those who welcome new students into the program. And they really do start to give to one another. And that is one of my great joys. I
Yeah.
actually and honestly, that can happen out the gate. I actually just last week, we have our intake for students. Students for our program don't just sign up for classes in the same way you might for other Cabrillo classes. It's a little bit more intensive. It's a little bit more process of engaging with students and going through their goals. So we had 3 new students in our room, and as questions were being asked about what their goals were and maybe what their strategies that they're currently using, say for communication. And in the process of that, one of these new students offered some suggestions to one of the other new students in the room. And for me, that was just such a gold moment because that's exactly what's happening. They bring these strategies, they bring these experiences, and they really begin to teach each other. And the longer somebody is in the program, the more we get to see that. They truly become the ones who are encouraging, motivating, teaching. It's very much they are teaching each other. And to see that that change in outlook and that change in participation is one of the really delightful things, being part of the staff and faculty here.
Oh, that's just extraordinary. And so you mentioned it is the 50th anniversary, and the center does have a special event coming up. And so I want to talk about that event and also talk about how the center is doing functionally. We all know there's a lot of budget cuts happening, there's a lot of uncertainty. Let's talk about that a bit. But first, let's talk about this wonderful event coming up.
Yes, great. We have our event happening on Friday, October 17th, here on the Cabrillo campus. It is a community event, so anybody is welcome to come. So any listeners, you're very welcome to join us at the event. The event happens at the Samper Recital Hall from 10 a.m. till 11 a.m. But we'd love you to stay afterwards for a light reception that will happen as well in the courtyard outside the hall. And the event is really a celebration of the program, but also the community, because this program has never existed by itself or at the initiation of just a handful of people. It's really fun for me as I look back over the 50 years to recognize how many other community members, community organizations have really been part of the collaborative process that have kept this going over the course of 50 years. So it's really a tribute to the community as well, as funders, as volunteers, as advocates, as participants. It's very much a celebration as a community. So we'd love to see people join us, and we'll be looking at some of our history, celebrating what we can do as a community. And I think, for me at this time, this season, I think it's great to celebrate and to be reminded of the fact that we can shape our own community. We can decide what kind of community that we want to be. And so the event is really about that as well as a statement that we're not going anywhere. We're here to, there's still a need, very much a need. And so it's really also a commitment to our continuing offering the program.
It's beautiful. And so, as I was leading in, we're hearing a lot of talk about budget cuts happening or coming down the pike. What's the outlook for the Stroke and Disability Center at Cabrillo?
We're not going anywhere. And I tell you, the center has faced budget challenges before, and the commitment is enormous. And I'm confident that we will continue on. Some of those budget implications, I think, are yet to be seen. And we are very much a hybrid. We're somewhat funded by disability services through the California Community College system. We're funded through grants. We're funded through city and county funding. Rely significantly on our community of donors who have been very generous over the 50 years. So it's really a hybrid of all of those pieces. I guess I do also strongly believe that the evidence is there that it's been an effective program, and people respond to that, and it continues to meet what really is a significant gap. Once you finish that medical care for many people, it's not clear with an acquired disability, where do you go from here? And it's not always very accessible. We have some great services, maybe for a season of life that is at a much higher need and more towards the end of life. But we're talking potentially here of 20, 30 years for many of these adults who have had functional impact, but still have so much ability. And yet where they fit is not always clear. And not a lot of services to address that gap. So we're also meeting a gap that is not commonly covered elsewhere. So I strongly believe that we'll make it through once again. And again, that incredible goodwill and generosity that has really characterized the last 50 years will continue. Challenging, but confident.
In case you've just tuned in, you are listening to KSQD Community Radio for all of the Monterey Bay. I am speaking with Sally Weiss, the Executive Director of the Stroke and Disability Center at Cabrillo College. And if people are listening and they feel really inspired, or maybe they had family members that struggled with disability, but they're new to the area and they're like, I want to support this, how would they do that?
Sure. So we can accept donations through the Cabrillo Foundation. You can always go to the Cabrillo Foundation on the Cabrillo website. You can also access that from our page on the Cabrillo website. You can get to that by simply typing strokecenter.com, and that will take you to our page on the Cabrillo Center. You'll find a link there to the event details as well. So if you head to that page on our Cabrillo website, you'll find many different directions that you can go. But certainly there's a donate button on that one. And any donation is accepted with much gratitude.
Great. And listeners, there is a show page at our website, ksqd.org, with direct links to the Stroke Center. And so with the few minutes we have left, I want to make sure we really covered all the important bases, but I have some curiosities. I went to Cabrillo, as did many of us, and it's beautifully situated on this wonderful hill. Like, how do people get to their classes? How do they deal with that?
That is a great question. So we have a purpose-built facility on the campus. So all our classes happen in the one building. We have a nice driveway immediately out the front. We're so well supported by Metro Paracruz, Liftline, those paratransit services within the county. We rely heavily on those for our students. So for the majority of students who are only here for the Stroke and Disability Learning Center, they have easy access to our front doors. The building was purpose-built, and so the hallways are nice and wide. The bathrooms are accessible. It's a very accessible, contained building where they can navigate and do their program in that building. Yeah.
Ah, that's really great to know. And do you know if it's such a great model, have any other areas in the United States or the world taken it up?
Not that I'm aware of. I know that there are other community colleges who may have maybe a piece of it. Many colleges have an adapted physical education program, and we have an element of that. There are some colleges that might have a communication element, but that's usually the one piece. We don't know of any other place that has all of those components together in one program in an integrated way. I would love to see it in many other places. I strongly believe that the possibility of seeing wellness and transition and continued growth in this season of life happen in an educational institution makes so much sense. So we'd love to see it replicated in other places, but as far as we know, we are unique in Santa Cruz County.
And I do imagine that people come from a lot of different areas to take advantage of this special program. You're nodding your head. Would you want to speak to that?
We do have some students. Obviously, often when people are impacted by this change in functioning, just everyday life is challenging, and transport is a significant issue. But we definitely have people who have come over from Los Gatos, from San Jose, sometimes from further into the Bay Area. We certainly have people who come from the South. We've had students who have moved to Aptos or Santa Cruz County specifically so that they can access this center. Doesn't happen often, but it has certainly happened. So yes, we certainly get phone calls, people just very interested in how could they possibly participate in the program.
Yeah, incredible. Very impressive. You and your team and the peer participants just must feel incredible pride at this creation. And it's brilliant. And for those who are interested in more of the history of the Stroke and Disability Center, there is a previous interview that happened on KSQD more than 5 years ago, and I'm going to include it in the show page. And if you want to know more, you can hear Deb Bone, who was a director of the center, and then also Cynthia Fitzgerald. And they go into the history, the genesis of it, which is so important to acknowledge the amazing creative people who ever conceived of this. It's just, I'm so happy to learn about this program. And as we wrap up, is there anything else that you wish we would have covered?
Yeah, we are proud of the center, and I hope as a county that we're proud of having this program within the county. And one of the things that it's really important for me, for us to really understand is that this is not a program just for adults with acquired disability. In my mind, I take very seriously that this is for all of us as a community. Disability is not something that just an individual experiences. This is our experience. This is our human experience. Things change, our functions change. We do get diseases, events, things that change our function, and yet our dignity and our personhood still has value and still has its place. And that's a community need. That is who we are. Disability isn't something that just happens to some people. It happens to us. It happens to our family members, our neighbors. It's part of our shared experience. And so it's really important, I believe, that a program like this is not seen as something for a certain group of individuals. It's for all of us. And it is a social experience that we decline and changes happen, and we navigate that together. Nobody is expected to do that alone. We do it together. And so this is a program not just for a certain population, it's for all of us. Yeah.
That's a beautiful community vision that to end on as a representative of community radio. It just goes straight to the heart. Thank you so much. A really inspiring story, and I'm sure our listeners are just going to love learning about the Stroke and Disability Center. And I hope those who are interested will join the very special event happening October 17th. 10 a.m. at Samper Recital Hall at Cabrillo College. All the information's in the show notes about this program. You can find it at ksqd.org. Thank you so much for joining us on Talk of the Bay.
Thank you so much, Christine. It's been wonderful.